Right, right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Greater New Haven Chamber of Commerce Small Business Series. I am Kobe Smith, the Small Business Support Specialist here at the Greater New Haven Chamber of Commerce. And I'm really excited because we have a friend, a brother, a mentor, a genius, all the above, such a great guy overall, Ramon Peralta, who is the founder and creative director at Peralta Design. He's going to do a presentation on how to launch your brand as a small business owner, but this is also very relevant to people who are in the professional field as well. I've known Ramon for about 2 years now. He's been such a great guy. He's given me great advice. He's just great at what he does. I've seen his presentation a multitude of times, and I learn something new every time that I see this. And I just want to say thank you, Ramon, for
Thank you.
all that you're doing to support small businesses, and I appreciate your time.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you for this opportunity. I'm looking forward to it.
Absolutely.
All right. Let me know when I can start sharing and I'll get things rolling.
Yeah, you can start sharing right now. Let me just check
Okay.
to see. We have some people on. But yeah, you're more than welcome to start going.
Okay. And let me know if you can see the presentation. Kobe, just
Oh,
need a
oh,
couple.
oh,
Yeah.
sorry. Yeah, I can see it. Sorry. I
Okay.
was on mute.
All right. Let me know when I can begin.
Yeah, you could go. You could go.
All right. All right. Let's go. Let's have at it. Um, Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here. My name is Ramon Peralta. I'm the founder and creative director at Peralta Design. And today we're going to be covering what I call Brand University. It's going to be a lot to unpack, but my goal is to leave plenty of time at the end for us to go over some Q&A. A little bit about me. I started kind of my professional career, if you will, or claim to fame as a senior art director on the team behind Priceline.com. And that is going back to 1998. Between 1998 and 2008, I learned my craft of starting ventures, taking an idea and turning it into a business. During that time period at Walker Digital. Walker Digital was like the parent company behind Priceline. A lot of people don't realize, but Priceline was just one of about 400 patents that we were trying to turn into a business. And it was in 2008 that I came to an end at my tenure there as I was part of a large wave of layoffs. And those of you that can recall 2008 know how difficult a time period it was. And that uncertainty, that economic downturn oftentimes gives birth to many new businesses. And it was at that time that I decided, after some serious soul searching, to start Peralta Design. And the purpose behind Peralta Design at that time was this awareness that there were a lot of other people like myself that were displaced. I called myself a reluctant entrepreneur because my first instinct was to try to find another job. But I had this skill set, if you will, of how to take an idea and turn it into a business through branding. And, it became the nucleus or the why behind starting my business. And it was only after some serious soul searching and through content marketing, which we're going to cover today, through content marketing, putting out content, and through brand strategies, I got an opportunity to be actually on this chamber's panel discussion during the last kind of big calamity that we felt as a nation during the pandemic, which affected so many businesses. I was on a panel that was talking about reopening safely. And that panel, I was asked to be on that panel because I had been putting out pieces of content every week, talking and giving away my knowledge and positioning myself as a subject matter expert, which is another aspect of digital marketing that we'll cover today. But shortly thereafter, I received a call from NPR, and I had asked them how they found me. They found me on Twitter. They registered for the same panel. They saw me speak. They interviewed me on NPR, and then shortly after that, I got on the Today Show. And the Today Show was a segment that I did on reopening safely, but it all stemmed from content marketing and brand awareness and brand strategy. So today you're going to get, at the very least, a very, very good pep talk, encouraging you to move forward with your respective businesses and in building your respective brands. And at the very best, you're going to learn some brand strategy, some practical takeaways that you can do and use to help you and your business kind of get to that next level. Today, I'm very happy to say that 16 years later, I run an amazing company with an amazing team, and we cover all aspects of launching brands, from web development to mobile app development to digital marketing to branding and brand strategy. And on most days, I feel like this. And the reason I share this with you is not only because I have a very big comic book collection and I love Marvel, but because I want you to kind of do some soul searching of your own as you begin to build the foundations of your own personal brand. Is that if you look at these heroes, they're a great metaphor for a number of reasons. Number one, as you start scaling your business and hiring people, or even just pulling in strategic partners, you realize that everybody brings a different skill set to the table. Everybody has superpowers that they bring to the table, and they complement each other. But also, I want you to look at these heroes in the aspect of how did they get their superpowers? And oftentimes it's through adversity or some sort of trauma. The Hulk, for example, I'm looking at him and he got, gamma radiation. He was trying to save a friend, received all this gamma radiation, and it gave him these superpowers, right? Spider-Man, we all know his origin story, bit by a radioactive spider, but there's always some sort of trauma, something that happens to each and every one of us that gives us those superpowers that we can bring as part of our uh, personal brand. And it's in being unique and it's in being different that we can differentiate our brand, and we can stand out from amongst the competition. So for those of you that are on this webinar that are nervous or scared, or you feel like I'm starting this business now, and after years of getting that steady paycheck, or you might be on the verge of a layoff and you're ready to make that leap, let me just tell you that most new business creations happen during economic downturn. Every time that the economy is a little bit unstable or there are massive layoffs, new business creation goes through the roof. So if you can be born in the fire, I think of the phoenix. You're going to rise from the ashes, and it's going to carry you through those very difficult times. Because if you can start a business during rough times, then you're already preparing yourself for success in the future. It's also a good time for you to do some soul searching and really ask yourself, do I have a viable business idea? So my sense, in the beginning was, there are other people that are displaced like me. I'm going to help them. Like, I identified a specific target audience. You need to do that. And it's okay to start very simple. In fact, it's encouraged to start with a very small niche, because simple scales, right? You can grow something that's very simple and you can add more services. I think a lot of times in my travels, I hear a lot of entrepreneurs, when they pitch you or where they tell you what they're about, they do so many things that it's very hard for it to be repeatable. So I want you to take this time as you begin to build the foundations of your brand. And if you're on this webinar, this is what you want to do. So I feel like I'm talking to the right people, is talk to mentors, hire a business coach. I hired a business coach for 6 months, the first 6 months of my business. And also, you're going to have to humble yourself as you're networking and you're seeking opportunities, and creating those strategic partnerships, right? Iron sharpens iron. So really associate yourself with the people that are going to really help elevate your brand. Before you really get things going, you got to start cloning yourself. What do I mean by that? Update your headshot. Make sure your profiles are consistent across all the different major platforms. Use that same headshot. A while ago, there was this meme that was like, here's your Tinder headshot and your Facebook headshot and your Twitter and your Instagram, and it was all different. And if you're really trying to be serious about building your personal brand, you need to make sure that it's consistent across all these platforms, right? And also set up one-on-ones with other people in your network, even if it's a service that you don't necessarily need. I can't tell you how many times I met with financial advisors, even though I wasn't planning on switching mine, and I've had the same one for 30 years. I would still meet with those folks because in Fairfield County, they're everywhere. There's probably, I don't know what there's more of, realtors or financial advisors. But they know people you don't know, and you know people they don't know. So they're still worth that conversation, that cup of coffee. And I call it cross-pollinate. You know, good people attract other good people. They refer other people. People do business with people they like. So I would meet oftentimes and just kind of say, here's my book of business. What's yours? Another way to do that is to swap link, like connect on LinkedIn and then say, hey, look through my contacts and let me know if there's anyone that I can introduce you to, and I'll do the same. But these are the foundational principles of establishing yourself. And these are some of the things that have worked for me in growing my business over the last 16 years. So let's dive in. Now that we've set the groundwork for building your own personal brand and launching your brand, let's talk a little bit about marketing. And it's a very big umbrella. I'm going to use a lot of terms, but again, if you have a question, put it in the chat. I'm going to leave some time at the end to talk about this. Preparing for takeoff. You're going to hear me use this metaphor quite often, and I recommend that you all have a metaphor that you use with your business. And I also recommend that you just be very observant during this presentation, that each slide is branded, that there's a color that's consistent throughout each of these. You'll notice my watch has the red. I always have something red to tie in with my brand. But think of your business as a rocket ship. We like to say, hey, Peralta Design, we launch brands. We launch, prepare for takeoff. All these metaphors really start to solidify the branding around what makes our business unique. Because there are a million ad agencies out there, but we're honed in on getting people airborne as soon as possible. So think of your business as a rocket ship. The top of the ship is the brand. This is the brand identity, the logo, the messaging, your brand story. I shared with you my brand story, and that's usually the first step that you want to kind of have solidified, as it's going to drive the messaging for everything else. The body of the ship, right, is your website. This is your digital footprint. This is what happens when somebody Googles you. What do they find? Good homework assignment is to Google yourself or Google your business and see what's out there. Being prolific on LinkedIn is important because it registers well on SEO. It's gonna come up when somebody Googles you. Digital marketing. This aspect of your business is what I call the engine, because this is what's going to drive awareness to your brand. People just aren't browsing the web. They're actually on a lot of these social media platforms, checking in on their friends and family and doing some networking. And that's where you need to be, right? So that's what's going to drive awareness back to your website. We're going to cover lead magnets and some other tactics that you can utilize to start building your own database and start raising some brand awareness and move your particular target audience through that marketing funnel. I like sharing this checklist because it always reminds me of, I think it was an old electric company bit where it was like the checklist, right, of the pilot getting into the plane and going through everything, and he would say check after each thing. So, well, this is very similar to takeoff. And these are some of the things we're going to cover today. We're going to really focus on your brand story. I'm assuming that you've got a business strategy and you've got an LLC and trade name, although we're going to talk a little bit about branding and naming, which is very important. But we're going to talk about, developing your website. What makes a good website? What makes a good strategy? And also the importance of implementing, analyzing, tracking, adjusting, right? Building your ship as you fly. And there are a lot of tools out there, like Google Analytics, for example, where you can really see where is your traffic coming from. And when you boost ads and so forth on social media, you can also get a lot of good metrics and charts and data to see what's working, what's not, and so on and so forth. So let's start with the brand. This is the first piece of that rocket that we're going to cover. We're going to cover those three major areas. So a lot of people think, well, I'm in branding because I can put your logo on a keychain. And it's like, no, there's so much more to branding than having your logo on a t-shirt or having your logo on a water bottle. There's so much more that's below the surface. In fact, Um, these are all things that you should be working on, and there are resources out there to help you do it. And SCORE is one of them. The Chamber's another one. MBDA is another one. There are a lot of resources available to help you hone in on what your mission statement is, what your promise is, what are some of your differentiators. I think if you really pay attention to your customers, you're going to hear why are they leaving a previous service provider to come to you. They're going to give you the gold. They're going to let you know what was it about the last agency or the last service provider that has them dealing with you now. And those can be the beginnings of your differentiators. Oftentimes addressing those pain points can leave clues as to what's going to be unique and different about you and how your business is messaging can be affected in a positive way to help kind of reinforce what those differentiators are. So the first step in the branding is your brand story. I love sharing the Marvel Comics metaphor because each hero, no matter who's your favorite hero, they have an origin story, and you have one too. And oftentimes, there's some shame that we might carry about it. There's some, you got to make yourself vulnerable, right? Like when I first got laid off, did I come home and start yelling on the mountaintop I got laid off? No, I felt like a failure. I came home and I said to my family, like, dad doesn't have a job anymore, right? And if you identify with your job, that can be devastating. But when you look back on it, it actually, if that hadn't happened, I wouldn't be here today. I wouldn't be running this great company today. So it's oftentimes these challenges we overcome. Not only do they become the source of our superpowers and form our origin stories, but sometimes they're the best thing that could have happened to us. So how do you take that worst thing and turn it into the best thing? The other thing I want you to think about is what brands have you worked for prior to starting to launch your own brand? Or what brand do you currently work at? If you're an employee, you can still think entrepreneurially and you can still think of building that brand within the company you work for. Uh, Bezos is famous for saying your brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room. So having almost a soundbite of your resume of the places you've worked, the projects you've worked on, the accomplishments you've made can be part of that brand story. Additionally, if you're in the service industry, think about what problem are you solving and who's your target audience? Where do they hang out at? Are you B2B? And so therefore you need to have a strong presence on LinkedIn, or are you more B2C and you need to be on TikTok because your audience, skews younger, right? These are all things that you want to think about. At the end of the day, you've got to have the right energy. You've got to be optimistic. You've got to believe that this is everything that's happened to you to get you where you are today happened for a reason, right? And this is that divine piece where you feel like, look, if I'm really using my gifts and everything, and I firmly believe that everything that's happened to me got me to where I am, then and my intentions are to genuinely help people, then you will succeed. Right. There's this divine order that can take place when you have that. I call it the Holy Grail, like helping people, doing what you love, or using your gifts and making money. That's the secret sauce right there. And if you can find that, it will motivate you into really, truly believing that you will succeed. So now that you have your brand story kind of buttoned up, and by the way, there's a QR code that I'll share at the end where you can download some free PDFs that'll help you in forming the narrative and creating the brand and getting some SMART goals going. So if you're not getting all this right away, that's okay. There is some material that you can download later, and of course I'll have some Q&A time. Brand identity is very, very important. So is brand naming. I always like to suggest that people have a URL that has a keyword in it. It'll help with searching. A keyword in your name is great. Creative, kitchen and catering. Peralta design, people are going to search for design, whether it's web or logo or annual report. There's a likelihood that our business name comes up because of the name. But oftentimes in our own strategy, we utilize whether or not, like we'll search, like here on shopspacehost.pro, we'll search a domain to see is this name available before we make our final recommendations to a client when we're naming their company. The biggest mistake you can make is just having it be so random and so vague that it doesn't really point to the industry you're in. And I've seen that where people take their initials and then it's maybe like ksconsultingllc.com, and they're in construction, right? It's like there's no keyword in that name, and it's not very repeatable or doesn't roll off the tongue easily. But I want you to think of also what acronyms are formed, because we're seeing a trend towards debranding where you have companies that were known by their full name, like Price Waterhouse Cooper is now PwC, or Weight Watchers is now WW, or Willis Towers Watson is now WTW. So also think PD for us is Peralta Design. As you start to work on the identity, the logo, which is usually the most fun that people have in this phase, also think about how will it reproduce small. Don't just think of it being large, but how will it reproduce small? And often one of the tips that I give is how will it embroider? Is it going to be easy to embroider? So don't have gradations and blends and really fine details in it, because you don't really have a logo at that point. You have an illustration, right? You need something that's very simple that can be broken down into very simple forms, and that will translate well in the number of colors. Now, are important as well. You'll see here that for the menu and for their brand, there's a corporate color palette. There's a brand guidelines that we've established, and with food industry, there tends to be colors that correlate with ingredients. Oftentimes, in finance, you'll see blues and greens. Greens for currency, blues for trust. If you're trying to be like very disruptive in a particular industry, red's a good color because it's going to stand out amongst all the other colors, and one of the reasons why we chose it. So there's a lot to psychology behind colors. So don't just pick your favorite color. Make sure you're really looking into what feelings are evoked with your branding, and are those the feelings that you want that to be representative of your company. You can see this kind of carrying through their web as well. This is another brand identity that we developed, and it kind of reinforces this idea of debranding that I just shared. So you'll see how it applies well as just an icon, and you're going to need this for your swag, in this case, for mugs. This is a special needs bookstore. It's operated by students that are on the spectrum. We have the full logo, and I love the icon here because it's the mug that's also a book, so it's pretty neat, and this is what you want to do. How can I distill my entire brand into just an icon that can be used on swag? Now that you've got your branding in order, you got your name, you got your logo, we're moving on to the website. And I like to use this house metaphor because a lot of people dive into spending money on marketing, and then they're like, well, I spent all this money on ads and it didn't really work. And the truth is that imagine you were sending out invitations to your home, and people came to your home, and your invitation was really nice. You bought these expensive invites, but then when they got to your home, they didn't know like where the front door was, or which doorbell to push, or there's 4 doors, and how do they know which door to go in through? It's a lot like that when you're inviting or driving traffic to your website. So there's a lot to it. These are the components of a good house, and we're going to show what a good landing page looks like. But there are a lot of options out there available, and you need at least a landing page. And there are, Wix has come a long way. I don't vilify any of these platforms. I think the one that still has the most flexibility is going to be WordPress, but I know that for budgetary reasons, you may need to start out on Squarespace or Shopify or Wix. It's all good. Just know that there's a difference between open source and closed source, and WordPress is going to give you the most flexibility for a long-term solution, but some of these other platforms might be a good temporary solution. And I don't recommend that people kind of run their business off social media. You need a landing page or a website where you can capture the data, and we're going to talk about what do you do with that data from a marketing standpoint. So this is an example of what I would call above the fold. This is a landing page we did for a client of ours in Georgia. They're a commercial painting company. Using software like Hotjar, where it's like heat mapping software, we can tell that people, when they get to a website, they start in the upper left, they go across to the upper right, they go diagonally to the lower left, they go back to the lower right, and then they end up in the middle. So the middle is prime real estate, but also the upper right is prime real estate. So try to distill place your main call to actions above the fold. That means that people don't have to scroll to get to this content that you want. And in this case, there are two calls to action. I wouldn't recommend more than two above the fold. I've seen, 5, 6, 7, 8, and the more calls to action you have, the less likely your website is going to convert, because people are going to be froze. They're going to be like, I don't know which of these to click. And if they have to kind of hesitate, they're out. If your page takes too long to load, they're out, right? So it's all about, like, you have like this 3 to 5 seconds max when a person lands on your page. Do they know what to do? In this case here, this one of the pain points in this industry is that commercial painters are hard to get a hold of. So they prided themselves in having a full staff answering the phones. So the call us now button was very, very important to them. And that's why you see it in two places. So now that you have your website set up, it's time to drive traffic. And we're not going to be able to go through all the ways that you can drive traffic in great detail. But I will say there are some basic best practices. Like, definitely set up Google My Business so that if somebody Googles you, you get that little box that shows up on the right with all of your information. Establish a presence across social media so that when you make posts there, that there is a destination that people can get to. I would say get Google reviews from your best clients, get testimonials, attend networking events, have some promotional items with your website on it, but also just drive people to your website as much as possible utilizing some of these tactics. Why is that important? It's because we're trying to get people through this funnel, and we're all in this funnel. This is a funnel that could be used for print, but we're using it today for digital. That first opening of the funnel is the awareness phase. This is when people are just going online and they're doing some research, and they're starting to see things that may pop up, or websites or posts or ads that are relevant to what they're searching for. Now the AI is out there and it's getting smarter, so it's almost listening or knows what you think. And so when you're in the consideration phase, this is where retargeting comes in. And retargeting means that let's say I'm looking for lawnmowers and I see an ad for a lawnmower and I click it, and it takes me to the John Deere website. But when I get to the John Deere website, I go to the leaf blowers, right? And now when I'm in the consideration phase, the next ad that I see on my social media is not going to be for lawnmowers or John Deere in general. It's going to be for leaf blowers. It's kind of moving me down that funnel. And when I click to purchase, or I click to make an appointment, or I click to fill in a form or download something from your website, that's the conversion piece. So you're moving people down that funnel constantly. The retention piece is a very, very important part of this funnel, because they say it's 10 times more expensive to get a new client than it is to sell your existing client base. So retention is where you're continuing to nurture that relationship. And we're going to talk about the golden content ratio shortly. But in the retention phase, think of that as like your e-newsletter that you might send out, giving some data away, giving some content away to some of your best clients, and giving them some incentives to continue doing business with you. Email marketing is very, very important. You do need to have a database for this, because this is where you're kind of reminding them that you're on the radar. What have you been up to? What new services are you offering? What events have you attended? There's a bit of entertainment aspect to email marketing too that's important. But it just keeps you front and center in front of your leads. If you don't feel like you have a large enough database where you could, actually be making an impact, you can utilize lead magnets to build out your email list. And lead magnets, we can all create them. I think no matter what industry you're in, whether let's say you're a handyman or you're an accountant, you can say, hey, here are the top 10 ways of keeping your home insulated over the winter to reduce your energy costs. Or here are the top 5 tax saving tips for 2024. Those kind of things are great lead magnets because people want that. When they click that and they go to download that white paper or that PDF for free, in exchange, they're going to give you their contact information. And when they do so, they're essentially giving you permission to market to them. So these are examples here of some lead magnets that we've done, and these can appear on LinkedIn, they can appear on Facebook. This one in the upper right is one of our favorite clients out of New Haven, DNB Lobby. They had us prepare a free white paper. It was like an ebook, and to download this to learn about lobbying, you would download this content for free, and when you go to download it, right? You put in your, people are very familiar with this now. If you go to buy anything online, they're like, give us your email address or let us text message you and get 10% off. And people do it. There's this quid pro quo. But what are they doing? They're building up their database. And not only is it a database, it's a very good one. It's a warm database because you've already said, hey, I'm getting something from you. I'm expecting something else from you. I'm letting you advertise to me because I got something from you at a discount. So let's talk a little bit about this. I'll let this sit here for a second. This is probably the most important slide, and I think it's because a lot of people get it wrong. And in today's climate, the business owner is actually expected to be a content creator. And I know a lot of you are like, look, I know my business. I don't like social media, or I know my business, but I don't like being online. I don't like to brag. I don't like to do this. I don't like to do that. But you're kind of expected to. But here's a formula you can use to help guide what you should be posting. So at least half, 50% of what you're posting should be educational content. These are trends and tips and guides, and it doesn't always have to be original content. If you're a financial advisor and you just read a great economic outlook, and you want to share that with your audience, that's great. It doesn't mean you wrote it, but it's you sharing information that you find valuable that's in alignment with your brand. Right? This is all about launching your brand and getting yourself out front and center. Be the one that gives away the most, that teaches the most, right? That's already going to differentiate. We like to give back, and we give back probably more than any other agency out there, but that keeps us on the radar, and it's fulfilling to our team that we're out here making a difference. The other 30% of your content, entertainment. People go online, right? They go online to learn and to laugh. They don't go to like, hey, I want to see what the latest ads are, right? They want to be, they don't want to necessarily be sold to, but they want to laugh. So entertainment allows you to highlight some maybe before and afters, what the culture is like at your office or your business, what fun things are you up to and doing. Maybe it's funny videos. If you're not good at funny videos, just show like, hey, we got donuts today. Here's our team having fun at an offsite. Wow, it looks like a great place to work. Everybody looks happy. Entertainment. People like this kind of behind the scenes kind of look. Oh wow, Kobe is this is how Kobe gets ready every morning. I didn't know that. He's very similar to me or whatever. That's 80% of your content. The last 20, right, is where we start promoting, sharing some of our case studies, sharing some testimonials, maybe sharing a special deal, maybe introducing a new vertical, right? But the challenge here is that, or the problem I would say is that this gets flipped on its head, and people that go out that are business owners, they think all the content they should be sharing should be promotional, right? And then people unfollow, people tune out. So make sure that you follow this mix or as close as you can to it. It'll prove to be successful. Social is a great place to market. One of the things I would tell you all, if you're new to it, is just follow your competitors. Look to see what other people in your space are doing and posting, and also notice what are their followers like. do they get more likes on a certain type of content? Then you can emulate that, right? Basically be inspired by your competitors to see what they're doing, and also pay attention to what could potentially differentiate you from them. So you can learn a lot from your competitors. But social is also a great place to increase brand awareness, because people spend a lot of time there. So you want to have a presence there. And it's very important to think about which aspects should you be boosting. We'll talk about that in a second. Google Ads is great for those high intent users. If somebody's looking to do something, they're doing their research, they're looking for car pressure washing companies in Fairfield County, then if you're a pressure washer company, a Google ad is going to be good for you, because it's a high intent user. They're searching for something. If they're searching for an attorney, if they're searching for an attorney that does contract law, it's a very specific thing that they're searching for. So when you try to promote a vertical in your business, try to use a very specific keyword in that, and avoid the broad ones, right? If you just put law firms, then there's so many. But if you put injury lawyer, or best uh, you know uh, job discrimination law firm in New Haven, that's a very, very specific Google search. And if you have a ad for that and a landing page that goes with it, you're gonna convert, because you're taking people down, and they're like, here's where I want to go, and you're taking them right down to it. What can happen is that you may have a very specific keyword in your Google ad, and I click it, but it takes me to your homepage, and then on your homepage, you tell me you do real estate closings, and you do wills and trusts, and you do criminal defense, and then maybe somewhere buried is what I'm looking for, and I might not get there, right? So have a very specific path, have a landing page for it. And here's an example of how we're using it at PD. We're promoting not all of our services, but we're promoting annual report design services, a very, very specific niche. And we're getting bites from the country to this, because people go online and they're searching for report design, and we have an ad for it that takes them to a landing page, which is this middle piece that you see. And then once they click that "Let's get started," it takes them to a form. For us, we like having our prospects quantify themselves. Like if they're willing to put a little skin in the game, we feel like we have a higher likelihood of closing them, because they're a little bit more engaged. They're not just clicking through and then just price hunting, but they're actually giving us some information. And when we get that form, we can decide how soon or how fast we want to follow up. The social media boosting is another aspect of digital marketing that we recommend. And I would say to you to do it when you have a post that gets a lot of engagement. If it's getting a lot of engagement in your, I would say your primary area, geographical area with your primary audience, then there's a good likelihood that it's going to do well in a secondary location or a secondary audience. And what I mean by that is, if you're in New Haven, but you're trying to get more clients in Westport, or you're in New Haven and you want to get more clients in Bloomfield, then if something is doing well in New Haven, when you boost it, don't just boost it in New Haven, but boost it in a different geographical location in front of a different audience and see how it does. And you can boost these ads for $20, $40 for 6 days, for 10 days. And the metrics on it are very, very important. You can get really granular, and you get really good reporting, so you can see what's working, why is it working, where is it working, and utilize that to kind of keep improving your marketing. This is I would say this is kind of like the rocket science slide, but essentially it's just showing how you can take content marketing and use it to drive traffic back to your website, and then you can turn it into a lead magnet as well, and it just kind of repeats. So on the left, you're going to see like some full-length video. For example, let's say you do a workshop like this, or you're in front of an audience for the chamber, and you're presenting on your business at a networking event. You can have somebody record that and then chop that up. Let's say that was a whole 10 minutes. You can chop that up into some shorter clips that are under 3 minutes, and you can utilize those clips on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. Then if one of those performs well, you can actually boost it right? And then the one that's boosting can retarget people back to your website, where when they get to your website, they click on one of your calls to action. It could be a free consultation, a free appointment, it could be a free download. And now you have their emails from that inquiry. And then you can start sending those new folks your newsletter. But you can see how all of this kind of content marketing drives people back to your website. You want them coming to your website. You don't necessarily need them going to your social media profiles, because your website is where you have this ability to not only capture the data, but own the data. And that's a key differentiator. There are a lot of AI tools that are out there. These are some of the ones that we use, but definitely embrace them. They're not going anywhere. So I would say definitely embrace them and use them. Lastly, we're going to go into this piece where I think you know, it's a win-win, because it's a great way to boost your brand and launch your brand and differentiate your brand, but it's also you're doing it while you're making the world a better place. And Howard Schultz, once said, if people believe they share values with a company, they will stay loyal to the brand. And it's very true, because today's consumer, 80% of them, and I think this number is growing, expect the brands that they support to take a stand on social issues. So definitely do not be shy. Your clients, are going to gravitate towards you, and they're looking to see whether or not you're supporting the causes that are important to them, whether it's the environment, whether it's being anti-racist, whether it's, giving back to, the less fortunate, whether it's feeding the hungry, or standing up against cancer, whatever that might be. Make sure that there's a social cause that's close to you that could help align your business with those causes. Um, those of you that know my full story know that I was once an at-risk youth, almost didn't make it into college. And that became like the nucleus of why I speak to kids so much. And that's one of the aspects of our business that's so important to us. So be a good company by doing good. A great way to launch your brand locally is to align yourself with some of the many nonprofits that are really making a difference locally, because some of you might say, well, what can I do? What can I do to make a difference? There's a lot. There's a lot. You can sit on a board, you can volunteer, you can donate, but definitely get involved and make sure that people are seeing your brand aligned with these other brands that are out there making a difference. I'm coming up on 11:45. I want to make sure that I have room for Q&A, which I love, but just wanted to share a couple of these slides. Some of you know that I wrote a book called Launch Your Brand that's available on Amazon. These are the free downloads that I wanted to share with you guys. They'll help you with a lot of it kind of correlates with the book, but you don't necessarily need it. If you don't have it, you can still utilize these downloads to go over some of the principles and tactics that we talked about today. You can certainly start working on your brand story. You can start working on a logo or a brand refresh, something that I didn't get too deep in, but if you already have a brand, there is a way to refresh it so that it evolves and that you retain some of the digital breadcrumbs, if you will, towards your previous iteration of your brand, so you don't alienate anyone. There's also a sheet here on how to create SMART goals, some specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-based goals, so that you're not just doing advertising or marketing willy-nilly, but you're actually setting a goal, and maybe it's to get 200 clients, to get 100 new projects, to get 10 appointments set this month. Whatever that is, if you make it a SMART goal, you're more likely to see whether or not you hit it versus making some really, really generic goals out there. There's a TED Talk that I did that's available on YouTube that I think entrepreneurs will find interesting and insightful. Be yourself, fire yourself, invest in yourself. So definitely give that a look. And lastly, I'll put my Calendly up here. I'll offer anyone that's on this workshop, a 15-minute call with me to kind of discuss your goals, and maybe if you have some additional questions you want to go over that you didn't get a chance to ask today, we can do it then. So I appreciate everyone for their time and for being here. Kobe, I'm going to turn it back over to you. I'm going to stop sharing, and then we can spend a few minutes talking about some Q&As that some folks might have.
Yeah, no problem. Ramon, as always, man, thank you. I mean, I learned so much. I caught myself taking notes on this presentation as well. So, like you said, every time you do this presentation, I learned something new. Now, let me check to see if we have anything in the chat at the moment. We don't have anything in the chat, but I guess I have a question for you.
Okay.
So, with your experience and all that you've done in the past 16 years, what are some of the qualities of clients that you love working? What do you look for in a client?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think for any business owner, if you have to educate the client and sell to the client, it's like an uphill battle. Because the amount of effort that has to go into explaining why they need your services um, it often makes it so that the juice isn't worth the squeeze. So
Yeah.
try to separate the two. Like, so I do some education, and this falls under that category. I'm educating, but I'm not expecting sales.
Mm-hmm.
Now, a client that approaches you that understands the value of having a good digital footprint or needs assistance or feels like they're falling behind. If you have a client that's like, look, we have an internal team, but they're inundated and they're caught up in the day to day, and we need an agency to come in with some fresh thinking and some fresh ideas. That's an ideal client for me because I can skip over the educational aspect of why you need our services and get right into the actual meat of the conversation, which is how can we help?
Mm-hmm.
So I think a lot of small business owners can relate to that. If you're educating and selling at the same time, it's an uphill battle. But if you can identify clients, if you do it right, the clients that are meant for you will be drawn to you by the content that you're putting out.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you for that. Oh, let's say we have our first question in the chat from Jesse Baker. He says, "Hi, Ramon. Great presentation. Does your book cover the latest online branding tools?
Yes.
Example, SEMrush, MarketMuse, etc."
Yes, that's a great question. And Jesse, thank you for that. Um, Jesse Baker, saw him yesterday. Shout out to him. Great golf tournament, 100 Black Men at Stanford. They gave away over $30,000 in scholarships to young people.
Wow.
It's an amazing. So that's something that I don't mind aligning my brand with them because they're doing such great things out there. So that's a great example, and it's nice to hear from him. So to answer your question, because of the fast-paced nature of marketing and all the advent of all of these new tools, the latest version of the book, Launch Your Brand, includes all the AI tools in there. Uh,
Wow.
in just 2 years of launching it, I'm on version 6 of the book.
Oh,
Uh,
wow.
so it needs to be because marketing is such a fast moving target. We continue to update it. So the latest version, to answer your question, yes, does include all the AI tools, including SEMrush and Market Muse. Absolutely.
Okay. Perfect. Yeah, I'll definitely have to get my updated copy then because
If
I
you
read through
open,
that book.
Yeah, if you go through the first couple pages, I think it's where like the copyright information is. There's a V number in the lower left corner. You'll see V6 is the latest one, and I'm sure that next year we'll probably have to do another update.
Okay. Awesome. And another thing that it's not really a question, it's more so a statement. The one thing I really liked about your presentation that really stood out to me this time was you talk about aligning yourself with strategic partners and people that share the same values that
Hmm.
you have, right?
Hmm.
Like I work with entrepreneurs, you work with entrepreneurs a lot. A lot of the times we talk to people, in my experience, everyone wants to do everything, right?
Yeah.
They want the attention of this market. And I always hear people saying, "Oh, my target market is everyone." But
Hmm.
when you do that, you become a master of nothing, right?
Right.
Because you're not pinpointing on that specific niche. And
Right.
when you find out the people that have the same values that align with you and you connect with them and you build strong relationships that way, that then, like you said before, makes you a subject matter expert. it
Right.
brings more validity to what you have going on. If one thing you all take from this webinar, I hope you really take that as well, because sometimes based on what you're doing in the industry that you're in, you can't cater to everyone.
Right.
But the people that you do cater to, if you
Right.
become the best at that topic, people will then return to you. And like you said, that brings in the retention.
Right, right. And I think there's an aspect of this where if you do this right, you're building an army of brand ambassadors. And what I
Yep.
mean by that is if you can walk into a room and somebody sees you and they're excited to come grab you and bring you to somebody that they want to introduce you to, then you know you're putting out good content and you're providing value because people love being connectors. They love saying, "Hey, I know a guy, or I know a gal that does this or that does that." You want to be in that conversation. You want to be on the radar. And one of the key things that you mentioned is that when you try to do everything for everybody, it's very hard to be on the radar in those moments because it's not repeatable. It's too vague, right? And it's counterintuitive. We think that, well, the more I can do for the more people, then the more business I'm going to get. But in reality, these conversations that arise are oftentimes about a very specific need. And you want to be that very specific person that comes to mind so that in the heat of the battle, they mention Kobe.
Mhm.
Right? They know he works with entrepreneurs. If you say I work with everyone and there's a conversation about entrepreneurship, you're not likely to come up
Mhm.
because you've made yourself into an umbrella term and you don't want that. You want to be very specific. And then when you have that opportunity with the entrepreneur, you can say, "Oh, do you also work with folks that think entrepreneurially but work within corporations?" And then you say, "Yeah, I also do that too. But I lead with entrepreneurship because that's my wheelhouse." Right? So it's a great point you make.
Awesome. Awesome. See, oh, we have another question. So, from an anonymous attendee, it says, how did you know it was time to transition from working for others to starting your own
Yes.
consult consultancy? Did you get these skills from working for others or personal experience or college? Great
Yes.
question, by the way.
That is a great question. I would be the first one to tell you that I was a reluctant entrepreneur.
Yes.
I was trying to work for someone as long as I possibly could. It was very scary for me because I had a family and a mortgage and
Mhm.
all these other responsibilities. Listen, if you're a young person that can live off ramen and you're like, "Hey, I don't want to work for anybody," God bless you. Like, go out there. But I always encourage people to be an employee first because there's so
Mhm.
many valuable skills you learn. You learn teamwork, you learn discipline. You also, whether you have a good manager or a bad manager, you're going to learn how to lead. You're going to
Mhm.
learn what works and what doesn't work. You're going to learn how a poor leader makes you feel. You're going
Mhm.
to learn how a great leader makes you feel, right? You're going to learn whether you're working in a toxic environment or whether you're working in an environment where it's safe to make mistakes. And for me, I had to learn all of those things as an employee. So I was an employee first. And there are a lot of transferable skills. Being a critical thinker, being a problem solver. You can be a problem solver and a critical thinker and work at McDonald's, right?
Mhm.
There are challenges that come up that are going to come up that can translate towards entrepreneurship. And I think it's best if we all are employees first, because then when we have that opportunity to be employers, I think we can be better leaders if we learn how to follow first.
Absolutely. And like you said throughout your presentation, the life experience, right? Like you can't be ashamed of what you go through because it only makes you stronger. Like I
Exactly.
remember when we spoke on that panel a few weeks ago, like there were certain things about you that I didn't know, but the fact that you were so confident in owning what you had to go through, if it wasn't for I won't say mistakes, if it wasn't for those experiences that you
Yes.
had, you wouldn't be here 16 years later, with
Yes.
Peralta Design, doing what you're
Yes.
doing, having all these government contracts,
Yes.
serving on all these boards, being a great leader. So yeah, you definitely have to own your experiences and you have to be patient because
Mhm.
what you're going through right now will not be what you have, which you will be going through in the future. So you definitely you live that every single time.
Thank you. And I want to shout out a colleague of mine, Chris Jarvis, who wrote a book, Be the Giraffe. And he uses the giraffe metaphor. And I think it's very appropriate in this conversation because the giraffe can see things from a higher elevation. It's got this long neck, but the long neck also makes it very vulnerable. You know, if you look in the animal world, you gotta, and even if you're a fan of Wu-Tang, protect your neck, right?
Yeah.
You gotta protect your neck. So here you have a giraffe with this very, very long neck, uh, out there exposed, but yet it allows him to see things from a higher elevation. So there's an advantage. So we all have to get comfortable in making ourselves vulnerable because I think if we can make ourselves vulnerable, we're going to make ourselves more relatable. And if we're more relatable, we're going to be able to reach those target audiences that we're trying to reach through our business.
Absolutely. Well, let me check just to make sure we don't have any other questions. Well, Ramon, like I said, man, every time we hang out, every time we catch up, it's always good energy, always good vibes. I'm always learning something new from you, so I appreciate you taking the time to do this for our chamber. We respect you. I really respect you. You're
Thank
definitely
you.
my brother. So,
Thank you.
anything else you need from us, I'll definitely make sure to make it happen for you, my bro.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be part of the Greater New Haven Chamber of Commerce. Thank you for this opportunity.
All right, thank you. And thank you all who tuned in. This was our small business support webinar series here with the great and talented Ramon Peralta, the founder and creative director at Peralta Design, teaching you all about how to launch your brands. We will see you all in the next webinar. Thank you all for your time.
Thank you.